Welcome to Breaking Down Security, Episode 2 for January 9th, 2015, with Brian Boettcher and me, Brian Brake. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It is a new year, and my good friend, Mr. Boettcher, is with me.
Hello, I'm here.
Hey, what's going on? So, technically, this is the second episode of the year because I had to rant last week on a tweet that Neil deGrasse Tyson had mentioned about unhackable systems. But we're actually back at full strength now. Mr. Boettcher's back from his hiatus. He had a... How was your holiday? How was your holiday season?
Great. I mean, everybody got all their presents, and now we're all cleaning up, and... you know, things are rocking and rolling for 2015. Got a bunch of goals in mind as far as my InfoSec, knowledge. And We'll see how that pans out.
Cool. Yeah, I aired all the grievances that I needed to grieving to air or whatever. And I definitely have some goals both for the podcast and personal growth, looking at getting maybe another certificate, another certification here that will, make my company happy and myself happy. So, thank you for listening to the podcast. And as you'll continue to listen over the next year, you'll hear a lot of brand new things coming up. And like we always say, if you have any feedback or anything you'd like to talk about or any topics you'd like us to cover, please let us know because we enjoy it.
And I'd like to just add, if while everybody's in the resolution mode, set some goals for 2015 and, set some steps, like a project plan almost. And, we can help you out and give advice as well. So just write us and say, I want to do this. Do you guys have any advice for me? And I'm sure, and unless we get like 10,000 emails all tomorrow, I'm sure we'll be more than happy to help out fellow InfoSec people.
Yeah, we've actually started getting feedback from people. Appreciate the emails from Killian about the podcast and some of the positive feedback on LinkedIn. That was great. So we are listening to our feedback, and we're going to have some podcasts on some of the stuff that Killian had actually mentioned in his email. So he lives in Kansas City, by the way, even though his Twitter has a picture of him walking on the beach. So. All right, so let's get into our podcast. For the first one for this year at full strength, we're going to talk about if you're a small business or you're a business with not a lot of people, a startup even perhaps, you wear a lot of hats. You may be a company of 9 people who, the CEO is also the head developer. The CIO is also the janitor and the caterer, and he brings in donuts on Fridays. And you have, a computer programmer, or you have the one IT guy who also does the information security stuff. So what we wanted to do was talk about, from a small business point of view or from a startup point of view, how you can help your company, be more secure. Because everybody needs to have security. And as we saw in 2013, if you read some of the headlines and stuff, especially not just in the U.S., but overseas as well, you hear about 60% of small businesses in the United Kingdom, for instance, had data breaches, or greater than like 80% here in the U.S. had some kind of breach of some kind. What we were going to do today was talk about how you can help your company, big or small, in this case small, protect themselves because for most companies, a data breach is a bad thing, but they if you're big enough, you just live with it and go on. Well, for a small company, that could be the end of the business. So it's even more important for you to protect what data you have, because it could be literally a life or death kind of thing.
Figuratively, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, yes,
it could
definitely.
Literally kill you. That's a pet peeve of mine when people say literally. It literally blew my mind. What? Literally?
Literally, the
Your
whole
brain
thing.
just got destroyed? But yeah, um, it could mean the end of your business because you are a small business.
That's right.
If a disaster happened and you didn't have backups, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that could be the end of your business. I mean, everything goes up in smoke. You didn't really practice good DR, and everything got destroyed. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you'd hate to be walking through the smoldering remains of your building to try to find hard drives or, data, in paper format to help save your company's hide. So, it's important to have a good DR plan because you maybe not have the alpha and the beta sites or the multiple data centers that a large company would have. So it would behoove you to would a DR plan be the most important thing that you'd want to look at first though?
well, I mean, it depends. It depends on how valuable, the stuff is that you have on site. Do you have another location? Do you have money to house the stuff somewhere? Can you contract that out? It all depends on the value. I mean, that's a good point for risk assessment. To
Mm-hmm.
do a quality risk assessment up front to see where your valuables are and how to protect them and how to make sure they are still accessible. Integrity. What's the triad? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability to make sure they're available.
You better get that right. I mean, dude, what's that triangle thing?
Yeah.
So the other thing about startups is you don't really you don't have a traditional office like environment.
Sometimes it's a garage, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's a garage. Sometimes you have people all over the country, all over the world, collaborating on a project. I know most open source projects are that way. So you have to look at your mobile policy. You have to look at proper policies if you have a small company. The idea is you want to create the security from the ground up, so that way when you grow as a company, you already have a culture of thinking about security. So
Yeah, that's a good point. You have to lay down the law up front as a skilled security professional. The guy who says, "Well, I've always run this Battlefield 1942 server on weekends." I mean, come on. You gotta say, well, that's not really a good thing because we have this data that's vital to our company on the same server. You're running your Battlefield 1942 on every weekend. So yeah, things like
is that
that.
a is that a Bob story? Do you
It
know?
could be.
Did
It could
did
be.
Bob tell you that? Wow,
Yeah, but
that sounds like from the trenches right there, my man. So
it just came out from the depths of my brain there for a
you were
second. Sorry. I
channeling
was
some.
hypnotized and it just came out.
Yeah, so having your policies and processes and all your procedures in place to, you know, your mobile policy, because you may not be big enough to have phones issued to people, so you may require people to use their personal phones. So you want to have some kind of way of saying, okay, you can check your email, but I don't know if you would have to have some kind of sandboxing app on your phone to allow for storage of data that is of a sensitive nature.
Well, you got to
You
have
may.
remote wipe capabilities as well.
Oh yeah, especially if the phone got stolen. Yeah, you're right. You
Yep.
definitely want some kind of remote wipe. You might want remote wipe or tracking on your assets in case a disgruntled employee who doesn't exactly work in the same part of your country is, making off with company assets or, so yeah, your mobile policies, your mobile procedures. What happens if you terminate an employee and he has to return information? I mean, you want to generate that culture of security from the outing, so that as you grow, so when like when you go, oh, I remember when we had 9 people at the company and we've got 1,000 now. All the policies that you created when you were 9 people, they have to be flexible, almost like a living document. They have to be flexible enough to allow for growth,
Yeah,
both your networks and your policies.
and it would behoove you to, and I've been part of an organization that started small and grew, it would behoove you to get these, policies, good policies in the works in the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of problems trying to get people to change. Well, I always
Exactly.
had full access to everything, and now you're cutting off my access for the firewalls, and yeah, we're going to have to do that. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to make sure that you get people to buy in up front.
Yep. Yep. Plus, I know that most companies don't have, they wear multiple hats. And if you're ever a sub on a big contract, you're going to come up against compliance issues, which, as we know, is a four-letter word. But having a solid policy and a process and procedure in place when you go up for your SOC audit or your PCI audit, if you're having to deal with or a third-party business agreement, having those things in place when your prime comes and asks you, hey, do you have X policies or do you have X qualifications, you can say, yep, we've gone through all this, we have all of our policies and procedures in place, we're solid. And that could actually, having everything set up ahead of time, and when you're a small company, can help make the compliance process a lot simpler when you're going down the road.
Or if you're in the business of winning contracts from big companies or governments or things, let's say you have a contract that has to be under FISMA, which is pretty tough to do as far as compliance goes.
Mm-hmm.
It would be good to have a strong security program in place ahead of time, and that way maybe a framework like FISMA won't be such a big deal because you've done all the hard work up front.
Yeah, and usually if you're following one of the larger frameworks like the ISO guidelines, you'll find that by following the majority of that, you'll already be compliant with your FISMAs and your PCIs and your SOCs. So that's always good. So we've talked about the policies and the procedures, incident response. You want to make sure that your incident response, and we were talking about DR earlier, but DR really is important. Honestly, I think a lot of your DR is mitigated by having a backup in a secure area, say on a cloud-based service. And a lot of people are hissing and making the sign of the cross when I say that, but there are a number of companies out there that do things like secure backups or log correlation or something online, or even security monitoring, so that you can monitor if somebody's downloaded, elf bowling on their computer. That's a good way for the IT guy at the small company to have, if he can offload some of that extra work onto a company that will help him. You can augment your IT and your IS department that way, or if you're having managed backups, I know a company that has an online backup system that is seamless. Like, you don't even know it's running. It's in the background, which is often the best way to do it, instead of having to remember to pull tapes or hard drives out of a
Sure.
backup system.
Okay. Where are we going with this now?
I don't know. So well, we could talk about some of the software you use for, security tools.
Yeah, I mean, for a small business or a startup, maybe you don't get the enterprise tools because they're too expensive, whereas a big company would have more assets to throw around. So you may look into a lot of the freeware. Like for IDS, you have network security monitoring that you may want to do. So you've got tools like Bro, Snort, and Suricata that you can utilize. You might want to do some log analysis with OSSec. I know Sandheim also does that. And I'm not a sponsor for Splunk or anything, but Splunk Enterprise is free. And if you keep things under 500 meg, I think it is, which you may have if you're, an employee of a small business, you should be good. It's 500 megs a day. And I think that's good the license is good forever.
So wait, Splunk is not a sponsor. Why do you have a bumper sticker on your forehead that says "I love
Oh,
Splunk"? What? What's up
really?
with that? What is up with
Oh.
that? No, I mean, there's quite a bit of a learning curve for some of these tools. So you want to use what's available that you could, I don't know, maybe get up and running. Snort is free, and then if you decided for IDS, if you wanted to move over to their SourceFire version, you're going to find that there's almost no difference in the.
Sure.
So you might want to use something free that will translate
Translate.
better to it. Yeah, more
Yeah,
easily.
yeah. So if you think Splunk is cool because everybody seems to be all up in that, then using it as a small business, it would be free. And then as you grow, and management can see the benefits of it, they get these cool little alerts, or what do you call them? Views of what's going on in your enterprise. Then they, as you grow, then you'd have to get a license for Splunk, which is cool.
Like we talked about before, as long as you're filtering properly, you can give Splunk, if you're comfortable with giving Splunk uploading log files to them for analysis, you can upload only the stuff that you'd really like them to monitor.
Yeah, you're talking about Splunk Storm, which is their cloud base, so that's 20 gigabytes. But Splunk Enterprise, you download onto your systems and use it. As long as you don't use 500 megs per day, you're good there. So
how does that work? Is it like the first 500 meg that you can monitor?
Well, yeah, if you use more than 500 meg, it'll stop working. So as long as you're able to filter enough data out to keep it under 500 meg, then you're good, and it's per day. So
well, you could use something like Bro, which I've been told is not actually an IDS. It's more like a network traffic grepping tool. So what?
With Bro, it's different than Snort in that it creates events.
Yeah.
It's not like when a particular signature is matched, I'll generate an alert for you. It's more like, say, this website was accessed, so here's an event. But then you have to correlate those events. I think Bro may do that for you. I haven't done a lot of research on Bro, but so it basically creates events, whereas Snort creates alerts based on signatures.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you could do like OSSec does log analysis and file integrity. So it's like
OSSec does a ton of stuff though. It's like a security onion, isn't it?
No, you're talking about OSSIM.
Oh, okay.
OSSIM.
Right. OSSIM, yeah.
So OSSec is basically log analysis, and it's based on the host. So you put an agent on each host, and you can do things with that. So that's pretty cool. And then is it kind of like Tripwire in that respect?
I don't know. That may be something we want to do a podcast on, to discuss different open source, non-Splunkified log correlation engines and SIMs.
So OSSIM is, I guess, created by Alien Vault, and it's a SIEM. Stands for Open Source Security Information Management, and it's got lots of tools as part of a suite, which is a web-based, or it has a browser-based GUI, right?
Yeah.
So it's got tools like Snort, OpenVOS included in it.
That's cool.
Yep, browser-based user interface.
Yeah. So, if you're the only IT/IS/janitor guy in the office, then, these are some tools that you might want to look at if you're a small company. The other thing you want to do with your network is you want to make sure that you've already got all your necessary ACLs in place, that you've got all your IP ranges set up properly, your VLAN segmentation is doing, proper, like you've got, the HR lady on her own network with like a /24, finance is on their own network and separate from the database server that is, running on a 486SX box or something, running database, or, you got to make sure you get all your network when you're a small company, because everybody obviously wants to be the next, big thing. So once you get big, it's hard to make those changes. So your control processes for change management are going to change. You're going to have more people in the chop because changes you're going to make on a larger network are going to have larger and more ramifications than, say, the smaller networks. So having your change management process where it's flexible, where you realize, okay, maybe I need to start having more people involved in the chop, and having one period, because I know in smaller businesses, it's like you yell down the room, yell down to the IT guy, hey, add a port on the firewall. Okay, done. Well, that flies when you're a small company, but when you're a larger company that's got to deal with things like compliance frameworks and SOX and where you have to have accountability, you can't just yell to the guy to make the change without having some kind of paper trail.
Yeah, change management, and I've lived through this as well, becomes a big deal as you grow. Like you said, when you're small, you want to change through. Okay, boom, done. It's easy. It's great. It's nice. It's fast. You get a lot more work done. And then as your company grows, you gotta have standard procedures and change windows, and you have to document how the change is going to go, so that if you happen to die in a fire, the buddy next to you can just read your instructions and do the change at the time that you would have done if you wouldn't have died. So all that documentation has to be in place, and it's just it's hard. So
wow, it'd just be easier if you didn't die, dude. So just don't die, and then you won't have to worry about all those backup procedures. Or whatever.
Keep that in mind. As you're I'm trying to think of a scenario here. As the cement truck is bearing down on you, just think about all those coworkers that have to put up with you not being there.
Yeah. And, have you been watching Final Destination or something recently?
Final Destination. I don't know what that is.
That's okay. Sorry. I've only seen one of them way back in the day. So,
okay.
Yeah, don't worry. You're not missing much.
So let me ask you this. So you're in a company that's kind of small and they're growing fast. What are some of the issues you've seen in your stint there?
Let me see. So
when
I was brought in,
sorry. Well, actually, the whole podcast is off the cuff. So.
We're all off the cuff.
Our show notes are just a bunch of links. So sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, people. We'll get better.
So okay. So when I went to my new company, I was supposed to help set up the vulnerability management program. You're going to do multiple hats anyway, because I'm also doing penetration testing and vulnerability management. So when we came in, there was an ad hoc vulnerability management scan going on internal systems, and the same thing happening on the outside. So the consultants were actually doing the vulnerability management, and it worked for a little while until we started getting, as we got bigger, more external business, more customers and whatever, and the consultants had less and less time to do the internal stuff. So it became necessary for them to create a position. So I come in and, since everything was being done ad hoc, there was no policy on how to do a scan or when to do a scan or who to notify for a scan. So I had to create a policy. I had to run it through all the necessary people in the company, make sure that it made sense. And I'm not a policy writer by any means. It's the same thing when I was developing RPG, role-playing games for friends and stuff. I would make something, I'd be like, oh God, they're going to think this sucks and whatever. And I finally, I'm not good at writing policies. I just finally got to the point where I was like, I'm going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. And apparently I did pretty decently on the first round because it actually worked out pretty well and they liked it. we got to the point where we're doing regular scans, where I'm notifying people of vulnerabilities, and we create a ticket in our ticketing system, and it goes to the right people, and then we discuss whether or not it needs to be patched. And no, we don't use this service, so we're going to just remove the package, or we're going to, we've got compensating controls in place, so it's not a vulnerability. Or, oh, look, there's this CVSS 10 vulnerability. We need to patch it. Well, no, it's a local exploit, so we don't have to worry about that one so much. Okay, that's fine. We're also behind X, Y, and Z controls, so that CVSS 10 is not really that critical because we have those controls in place. So it's been a learning experience for me, because every company I've worked in, it was either a consultancy where we didn't have to worry about vulnerability management because it was like basically just run Windows updates every month on your box, or it was a large company that already had established vulnerability management in place, and I was just kind of along for the ride. So it's been a real big learning experience for me with regard to learning how to deal with new processes and making your own processes, because not only are they new, they have to make sense to the company and work with the current climate that's there. It is a security company and they are security minded, but some of them still are hesitant to allow certain things to happen. And in the past few months that I've been here, I've seen those barriers fall, and it's been a lot more they've been a lot more communicative, and it's been a lot more positive with regard to doing some of the stuff that I've been working on.
So as you do a lot of changes in the environment, are you blamed for a lot of issues that go wrong?
No, because I don't do any of the changes. I just make a ticket, and then I say, "Hey,
that's
person."
Nice. So people don't go, "Oh crap, my server died. Must be Break running his scans again."
Well, I have had a couple of scans where I might have crashed the womp womp, so people. I didn't realize I generated that much traffic, but it was just enough to cause issues. That was a learning experience. So now I scan separately, and I let other people know who weren't necessarily notified the first time. So I watched that one intently. So there are some precious snowflake systems that I still have to deal with, but we're working through all that.
Yeah. All right.
But the thing is, though, communication is the key. You want to be able to talk to people and make sure the policies make sense to everybody, and otherwise you're going to have all kinds of issues down the road when somebody doesn't like what you said or how you did it. So.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal right there. What you said, communication is the key, especially in a small business. If you're maybe a new hire in a small business and you walk in and say, "Hey, why are you guys doing this? This is an old system. You guys need to upgrade," or this is stupid. You shouldn't be using this. I think you're going to have a lot of pushback. It helps to go in and understand why things are done the way they are first. Learn from your peers, and maybe once you become respected, because they see what a benefit you're offering to the company, they will be more apt to play ear to your suggestions later on that you may have, and show them the benefits of doing things a little differently. But don't go in there and say and offer all these ideas right away without establishing relationships with your peers first.
Yeah, you got to get the lay of the land. You can't just walk up in there, toss your piece on the table, and say,
you guys
y'all are sucking it the way you're doing this. Yeah, because you got to create an environment where it's going to be a good communication environment. Because if it's a negative communication environment, you're going to have people shut down. They're going to avoid you. They're going to not want to deal with you, or they're just going to want to do the necessary minimum to get you out of the way. So small companies, big companies, I think would require more communication than smaller companies, but it's a different kind of communication.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned vulnerability management. You shouldn't run a scan and then just say, hey, you got this wrong. You need to fix it, upgrade, bye. No, you need to talk with the owner of whatever system it is and say, I ran a scan and your system had this. I did some research on it and it says that you should do this. Is there, can you do that, or do you need some help, or what can I do? Because usually security has a little bit of weight to it for compliance reasons. You can get things done that way. So, it's good to establish a trust relationship with your peers.
Yeah. Well, the other thing with a small company is you've got one guy in another group that may be able to do the patching for that system. And if you give him, in a small company, if you give him 20 tickets, he's not going to get all those done.
Yeah.
Like the issues I've had, I put in a couple of tickets and he was like, well, why are we patching this? This is a local exploit. Or, this doesn't even have this functionality on this box. I can either patch it and spend an hour and a half doing that, or I can spend an hour and a half patching something that really matters. So when I have a vulnerability, I have to start looking at whether or not it's, say, on an externally facing system, if it's a remotely exploitable patch. So if it's on an external system with a remotely exploitable patch, that's more important and ticket worthy than, say, a local exploit inside the network.
Right.
Because you have to have physical access to the box. So, at other companies that I've ever worked at, it's been like, see a patch, kill a patch. Doesn't matter if it's remote, local, or
Sure.
what. See a patch, kill a patch.
That's the issues you had with Poodle, right?
Yeah.
Poodle, oh no,
Yeah.
we got to fix Poodle. My internal box, Poodle. Yeah, no, calm down. It's not that bad.
Yep. Or the pseudo patch that came out, we were talking about on defensive security. It's like you already have to be in the pseudo group to make the vulnerability work. So you already have to be an authenticated user in the pseudoers group on that system for you to be able to do the exploit. Or like the ASUS patch, not to bring news into it, but there is an ASUS 0 O-Day out there.
Oh yeah?
And everybody's like, oh my God, it's a wireless router patch, wireless router vulnerability. Well, you have to actually be authenticated on the network for you to be able to exploit the patch. So if you just see an AP out there that's an ASUS router, you can't exploit it unless you're actually on the network. So that's one thing I've learned as well. It's like not every patch is necessarily needing to be patched. It depends on whatever your software configuration is. And in a small company, everybody's time is valuable. And you can't waste a lot of time and other people's time patching everything or doing whatever. So
yeah, everybody's time is valuable everywhere, but I think in any size company, but it's even more so, or if you waste the time of one individual, it's a more percentage of a hit that the whole company has. So it's more critical that you get the important stuff there nailed down.
That's right. It's definitely a triage kind of thing. You're going to deal with the most serious stuff first. So, yep. Well, there you go, Mr. Boettcher. First episode of the season at full power here, full team. So, I think it was a good job. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We're on Twitter, we're on Google Plus. We have a Facebook fan page. The hashtag on Twitter is #breaksec, like my last name, BRAKE-SEC. If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to hit us up on there. I am at Brian Brake. That's BRYAN-BRAKE. Boettcher is at Boettcher Pwned. I think he just hit about 50 followers, so good for him. I hit 1,000 just before the first of the year, so that was fantastic. So we're on Google, on Gmail, bds.podcast@gmail.com. We do get feedback on there. We appreciate that. We're also on iTunes. have an RSS link. I'll put the QR code for the RSS feed in the icon for the podcast. So if you want to add that to your favorite RSS reader, you can do that. So we'll be back next week. Brand new podcast, brand new year. We got a bunch of stuff in the hopper that we want to work on, that even some little pet projects. Hopefully we'll have a video out this month. All right, everyone, have a great week. This was Breaking Down Security episode 2. Have a great week. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.